Clark County and its community members have prioritized assisting the most vulnerable in our community. Recently, we sat down with Michael Torres, program manager from Clark County Community Services, and Cecily Finney Jones, chief executive officer of the Council for Homeless, to get an update on how local service providers assist unhoused residents.
Hello, I'm Jim Demo with Clark County Close-Up. Thank you both so much for meeting with us.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Michael, you're off first. What is Community Services' main role in responding to the needs of the unhoused in our community?
Thank you for the question. So Community Services is the department in the county that is responsible for receiving and overseeing the distribution of designated homeless funding in the community. Clark County is the designated government entity that is currently responsible for homeless planning and services in the county. That's by legislation, counties are default. Any city can decide to take primary responsibility to run their homeless programs and receive that designated funding. But unless that happens, the default is the county. So as long as there has been a requirement for homeless planning, which I think was around 2006, Clark County has received the funds, has been responsible for the plans, and administering all the contracts.
Okay, and and with Vancouver, does Vancouver still, is it receiving its own funds, as you mentioned, or is it still all flowing through Clark County?
All state, federal, and local funding that is designated for homelessness goes to the county.
Okay.
Now, the City of Vancouver has done some initiatives to generate funds for homeless programs, which is fantastic, and they've been successful at it. So the City of Vancouver is receiving some of its own funds that it's created and administering those funds for their own programs.
Cecily,
Yes.
what's the mission for the Council of the Homeless?
Thanks for asking that question, Jim. Council for the Homeless's mission is to provide community leadership, compelling advocacy, as well as practical solutions to prevent and end homelessness in Clark County, Washington. So we're the hub of the homeless crisis response system. We provide the coordinated entry system to ensure that people who are experiencing homelessness or housing instability, we're looking at making sure that we're looking at vulnerability, and resources to engage that community. And we also serve as the conveners of the homeless crisis response system, which means that we bring folks together. It's kind of like our superpower. We're collaborators, we're conveners of the homeless crisis response system, and that's the task that we take seriously as the lead agency at Council for the Homeless.
Okay. So I know this is a very complex response, but in general for Clark County, are the numbers of homeless increasing or declining? And then how do you know that?
I'll start, and it is a complex question and complex response because, what is considered homelessness? What does homelessness look like? Are we talking about sheltered homelessness? People who are they don't have a home of their own, but they're living in a shelter, they're living under some form of roof, or are they unsheltered? That really changes numbers a lot. So when I'm answering, I am talking about homelessness meaning people who don't have a home of their own. And when I say unsheltered homelessness, I'm talking about people that don't have any kind of roof over their head. They're not they're not sleeping in a place that's meant for human habitation. So overall, homelessness, people who need a home, has slightly increased over the past year. There's still progress. It's the lowest increase we have seen in about 10 years. Unsheltered homelessness has stayed, sheltered homelessness has stayed steady. I mean, it's a really tiny decline over the past year, something like 0.4%. So it's really steady, but it hasn't, there's a lot of work that service providers have done to make sure that the visible the suffering of homelessness has really not significantly increased in the community, even though the pressures that cause homelessness, I think, continue to build. You want to add anything to that?
I think I just want to add that it is a very complex system, and we're constantly looking at the numbers. That's also what Council for the Homeless does. We provide oversight of the Homeless Management Information System, otherwise known as HMIS, to make sure that we know what the data is. It's the data that leads our funding. It's the data that tells the story of homelessness and houselessness across Clark County, Washington. I just want to add that we have seen homelessness in communities increase. So in BIPOC communities, homelessness has increased, especially when you take a look at the number of BIPOC people who are in Clark County, and the number that are experiencing homelessness has increased over the last few years.
What about like seniors, veterans, families, those communities?
It's varied a little bit between the communities. Senior homelessness has slightly increased. Unsheltered senior homelessness has not increased at all. Because of the increases in shelter bed capacity in this community, seniors have been able to access shelter, and because of that, unsheltered homelessness has not increased. Veteran homelessness has gone down about 25%. Last count, I think there were 39 veterans that were counted as unsheltered homeless in our community. There are discussions, and we are hopeful that we will be able to end veteran homelessness in this community like this year.
This year.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
We're excited and hopeful about it. And I think you've mentioned family homelessness has slightly increased. If you want to talk about that.
Yes, family homelessness has slightly increased, and we don't know exactly the reason for that, but I would say that it has probably something to do with the high cost of rent throughout Clark County, and so families are struggling. And I just want to make sure to reiterate something that Michael just said. Sheltered homelessness is still, folks that are in shelter are still considered homeless.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And it's important that we understand that they would still be counted as homeless.
Okay.
I didn't completely answer your earlier question about numbers. I kind of gave the overview, like, well, it's slightly increased, but it's looking pretty steady. So I don't have the numbers for 2024 yet. We usually tabulate and publish them later in the year. But to give an idea about what things are like out there for 2023, and I do expect 2024 will be similar in terms of number, about 5,500 households during 2023 contacted and were assisted by the Council for Homeless Solutions Center in some way with issues around homelessness. About 3,700 households were assessed for housing during 2023. About 1,300 households accessed shelter. About 1,500 households received rental assistance and were able to maintain some housing stability through that rental assistance. And about 450 households entered a long-term housing program. So 2024, I think we'll have some similar numbers to that, and I think we will see in a couple months.
Yes, we'll see by, I would say, the end of spring. We'll have our system numbers report out.
Okay. Back in 2018, the state required counties to adopt a 5-year homeless strategy plan. Clark County adopted its plan in late 2018. It's tough since there was a pandemic during a good portion of the 5-year period, but how well did the county do in addressing the type priorities of the plan?
Sure, thank you for that question again. So the requirement for having a 5-year local plan actually goes back to about 2006. And Clark County has done 5-year plans, since that time. Our most recent plan was published in 2018. It was slightly modified in late 2018, 2019. We are still under that plan due to the pandemic and some changing state requirements. we postponed doing the new 5-year plan until this year. We are just starting the process of local planning on that. In fact, we had some meetings with the Ending Homelessness Community Organization,
Otherwise known as
ECHO, which is, which you broadcast the meetings. It's composed of like county and city councilors, philanthropists and service providers in this community that really focus on homelessness. We've had meetings to talk about the 5-year plan in December and January. We met last week because I'll let you talk about the consultant, but Council for Homeless just got a consultant to help us steering that plan. And we're finalizing the task force, the committee that will help guide the creation of the plan now. I think planning will be, and planning and community engagement will really be spring through summer. Drafting of the plan will be throughout the summer. Vetting of the plan with the communities, with ECHO, with the jurisdictions will be fall, and adoption of the plan by the county council will be late fall, and it will be submitted to the state as required by December of 2025. You want to add anything to that?
Yeah, our contractor is Echo Northwest, so we are excited to be working with them. They will assist Council for the Homeless with facilitation, because the community engagement piece of the work for the Homeless Action Plan is really the priority. Making sure that folks with lived experience are their thoughts and ideas about what they need are part of the plan, as well as all of the providers and stakeholders and elected officials throughout the county has some say. And so that's why Council for the Homeless is deemed the agency that does this work, is because we already do so much of that convening and collaborating. So we're excited to be working with Echo Northwest.
Okay, so stay tuned on that. With federal COVID response funds ending, a changing federal administration, and tightening state budgets, what's the funding outlook for homeless assistance in this area?
I'd say it's pretty uncertain. The commitment to fund our system, fund our services, address homelessness is there. I see it. I see it at the county level. I see it in every city in the county. There's a reason ECHO exists. And because of that commitment, I do believe that resources will be found to fully fund the services to the best of the county and the city's ability. Having said that, federal funding is uncertain at this point. We just don't know. State funding, they're in the middle of a legislative session, new governor. They're expecting state deficits. We've been advised by the State Department of Commerce to plan for a 20% reduction across the board, and we are planning. We've been engaged in conversations about that. Locally, the primary source of local funds that are designated for homelessness are document recording fees. For the past couple of years, there have been shortfalls in terms of the expected collection of document recording fees by about 48% from what is expected. Altogether, that translates to, for this biennium, there is an anticipated shortfall in revenue of about $3.5 million a year. So it's an uncertain environment. We do know that the State Department of Commerce has asked the legislature to fully fund homeless programs and provide a backfill for the shortfall on local document recording fee dollars. If you tune into the ECHO the past couple months, I think that has been mentioned, and it will be discussed more this next one, is my understanding. And I do know that the county council, city council has been interested in advocating to the legislature to follow through with that request, and that will be very helpful.
Okay. Cecily, for viewers who see homelessness in the community and want to help, what are some best ways they can help make a difference?
Thank you for that question. So I would say, right now, the legislative session has begun. There are lots of bills on the floor to help support the homeless crisis response system and also take dollars away from the homeless crisis response system. I would hope that folks are engaging in that process, talking to their elected officials, making sure they understand how this may impact homelessness. So get engaged, make sure you understand what's happening and where the funding is coming from, because if we don't have the dollars to do the work that we are known to do every single day, people will suffer. And so just make sure that you're advocating with your elected officials. It's most important.
Thank you for that. Michael, if people want more information about the county's response to homeless needs, where can they check?
Well, there is a web page with Clark County Community Services that you can Google. It's Community Services Homeless Crisis Response System Response, HCRS Response. And I would say that the best source of information for both resources and what is going on around homelessness in the community is actually the Council for Homeless website.
Okay, and we'll put that up on page, and there's also a phone number, 360-695-9677.
Yes.
Okay, well, thank you very much for meeting with us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Fortis.